Hi everyone, good afternoon. Happy to see the turnout. Thanks all for sticking around after lunch. I'm Ziv, and today we're going to talk a bit about KPIs and how the numbers that are supposed to guide us can actually sometimes mislead us. This will come in handy. So I'm VP Revenue at Quiz. We're a bootstrap startup growing since 2016, based here in Tel Aviv. We offer publishers and performance marketers a suite of tech solutions for monetization and profitable scale. Before I joined Quiz, I spent 7 years with Publicis Group, managing brands' advertising accounts. And from there to 7 years with Google's business organization, driving ad revenue and partnerships for the Waze navigation app. At Quiz, I contribute to the company's overall strategy, building and growing partnerships across the company, and driving the success of our partners. I'm also the super proud dad of two awesome boys, Gal, who made us wait forever and was born after 43 weeks of pregnancy, and Yuval, my youngest, who was in much more of a rush to get out and was born after 37 weeks. I'm also happily married to their lovely mother, Ronnie, whose average pregnancy duration is a perfect 40 weeks, which is same as global average. Now, I mentioned the word average a lot, but if you ask Ronnie, there was nothing average about it, especially 43 weeks in with Gal, the guy came out ready for preschool. So, while averages seem like a great tool to get a simple sense of what's going on, the devil, as always, is in the details, and averages can actually become even more deceiving. Today we're going to look into how a false perception of metrics and KPIs can impact the business decisions that we make. But before we dive into AdTech, let's go to college for a second. Imagine a hypothetical university that has only two faculties, humanities and engineering. Now we want to look at the data and see who gets accepted more to this university, men or women. So let's start with humanities. We see that in humanities, women have a higher acceptance rate. 80% of women that apply get accepted to humanities versus only 60% for men. All right, so let's look at engineering. We see that here we also have a similar picture. 35% of women get accepted versus only 25% of men. Again, women have a higher acceptance rate. So it's only logical to assume that if women have a higher acceptance rate to engineering and women have a higher acceptance to humanities, then overall, women have a higher acceptance rate, correct? Not necessarily. It can actually mean the exact opposite. Maybe men have a higher overall acceptance rate versus women. But how is that possible? We're seeing the numbers right here. But we're seeing averages, so let's look what's happening behind it. If we look at women, 300 women apply to engineering, 105 got in, that's 35% acceptance rate. Humanities, 100 women applied, 80 got in, that's 80%. Overall, in total, 400 women applied to the university, 185 got in, that's 46-ish%, a bit less than half. Now let's look at men. 100 men applied to engineering, that's 20, and 25 got in, that's 25%. 300 applied to humanities, and 180 got in, that's 60%. But overall, out of 400 men that applied, 205 got in, 51%, more than half, more than women. So we see that even though women won in each faculty, both in engineering and in humanities, the fact that they applied more to engineering where acceptance rates are lower pulled their overall average down. Whilst men who applied more to humanities where it was easier to get in or there were higher acceptance rates, that made their average go up. So we see that what really matters in this scenario is where and how often do you win. But what does that have to do with AdTech? So averages or all metrics we use in order to track and monitor success are critical. We all need to identify the numbers that are key to our growth. Especially now, we're all kicking off our 2025 work plans. And we need to make sure that we're measuring what really drives success. Let's take it a step further. You've all chosen certain numbers, certain metrics, certain KPIs to guide you. And based on the changes in those numbers, you're able to identify if your strategy is moving in the right direction or not. Each in their own field. Finance leaders might track earnings, EBITDA, profitability per head count, expenses, etc. Sales leaders often track average deal size, close rates, number of deals, diversification of portfolio. For me, I collaborate a lot with publishers, programmatic and monetization leaders to help them grow their yield. I see that they often track contribution to revenue, fill rates, CPMs. Sometimes they spice it up with the core web vitals. But the trick is to make sure that you're choosing the KPIs that are correct for your success and not the ones distracting you. And let's look at a common example. At Quiz, we have an SSP. We have a great SSP. It's called Quiz RTD. If you want to talk to me about it later, DM me. We're in a lot of discussions with potential new partners, publishers that want to partner with us. And they always send us like a bunch of questions as part of the discussion. And one of the most common questions we get is, what's your average CPM? I find this question funny, but we'll see later why. So if they're asking, it's because it's important to them. Maybe they're tracking it, maybe they're monitoring, maybe they want to push it higher, and maybe it's a KPI for them. So I can only assume that a high number will be a good answer because they're probably looking to drive higher CPMs in order to grow their yield. Makes sense. If you sell the same number of units for a higher price per unit, you grow. So let's say that we're the director of monetization for this publisher, and we're tasked with driving high CPMs, higher CPMs. We might want to turn away potential demand partners that have average CPMs that don't fall within our standards or our range. We might also look into our existing stack and look to potentially replace some of the demand partners that are low performing CPM-wise. So let's do this. Let's look into the stack, and we see two demand partners. On the left, we have Best Demand. Best Demand are doing great. They have a $2.5 CPM, and they're at the top of our stack. But on the right, we see Ultimate Demand. Now, they're falling short. Their CPM, average overall CPM, is only $1.83. Now, we were tasked to drive higher CPMs, so we might want to consider replacing the bottom performing demand partner, which has only 1.83. Maybe we'll even set like a new guideline. We don't accept new partners that have an average CPM below 1.9. We don't keep partners with average CPM below 1.9. So we decide to replace Ultimate Demand and move on with our lives. Now let's see what actually happened. First of all, we lost 70% of the revenue. That's unfortunate. It turns out that Ultimate Demand, while having a lower CPM, actually generated much more revenue, more than double than Best Demand. So focusing on getting a higher overall CPM actually made us cut into actual revenue. But what created this difference in revenue? Let's assume that both demand partners received the same opportunity, the same amount of traffic from the publisher. What drove this? So first, looks like we preferred the partner with the lower win rate. Best Demand won only 1% of auctions. So with 80,000 impressions won at their high CPM, they got $200 for us. Ultimate Demand, though, won 3 times more, much more. 3% win rate, so with 240,000 impressions, despite having lower average CPM, they delivered $440 in revenue. So that's one thing that happened, but there's something even worse. Remember, we started this journey trying to drive higher CPMs. But if we break this down into environments, we see that actually we preferred the demand partner with the lower CPM per environment. Because if we look at non-cookieless environments, where we know that advertisers are willing to pay more, we see that Best Demand drove $3 CPM, and Ultimate Demand 3.5. Then we turn to cookieless, and we see that there, Best Demand drove $1 CPMs, and Ultimate Demand got 1.5. So in each environment, Ultimate Demand won. It's the same as the university example. Now, because best demand won more, it won a lot less in total, but it won more in non-cookieless environments, that pushed their average up. Ultimate demand won a lot more in total, but really excelled in cookieless environments, that drove their average down. And so, like, focusing on a misleading KPI, like overall highest CPM, average CPM, actually distracted us from what really matters. And why is this question funny? I remember I mentioned that I find this question funny. It's because actually in programmatic, there is no such thing as a low winning CPM. I repeat, there is no such thing as a low winning CPM in programmatic. Even if you expected $3 and you got $2, the price you got was the highest price someone was willing to pay for this auction. It might differ by domains and geos and operating systems and many more aspects, but the price you got was the highest bid anyone was willing to pay for this auction, for this specific user or ad space at this specific moment. So what can we take away from these examples? First of all, be selective about your KPIs. Make sure you choose only the KPIs that really indicate what's important to drive your strategy. We saw how focusing on a misleading KPI, like CPM, distracted us from things like incremental revenue, win rate, RPMs that might better reflect revenue. Second, not all KPIs are equal. There can be first prior KPIs and second prior KPIs. Strategy includes prioritization. So make sure you decide what is most important to you, and make sure that you set your KPIs in a way that they complement each other and cover for each other's short sides. Last, challenge your matrix. At least from time to time, challenge your numbers, break them apart, reverse engineer them, look at the granularities, see what creates the average. What more can we learn from these numbers? Now, by doing this due diligence to our KPIs and to the numbers that we look at every day, and by refining our KPIs, we position ourselves in a better place in order to make sure that we win where it matters most. I want to thank you all for listening. Hope you found it interesting, and a great rest of AdTechX.